Welcome to the program. This is Checkpoint, and let's get into it. You saw my guests just before the break, but just in case you missed that, here they are again one more time. Diritu Njoka, who's from Maendeleo ya Wanaume, thank you. Yep. We have Pastor S, as everybody likes to call him, is Pastor Simon Bevy. He's the Executive Director of Transform Nations. You know him for the Boys to Men program. If you haven't, go check it out, something interesting. Boniface Mwangi, who's also a graduate of the Boys to Men program.
Yes, I am.
So Man Enough, not the Boys to Men.
The
Man Enough.
Man Enough program.
Yes.
There you go. So are you man enough?
I'm a man enough.
We'll be talking about that. And Ngunjiri Wambugu. So we're talking about the boy child and whether he's been neglected in our quest for affirmative action, particularly for women. Keep your comments coming in. 22155 is the SMS number. #Checkpoint on Twitter. And let's get into that discussion now. I want to start with you, Nderitu, because you're the one that's put the study together, and that was done first quarter of the year. What is it about women's empowerment that makes you unhappy, uncomfortable about what's happening in this country to the boy child?
Okay, one, I'd like to say that we have never been against women empowerment. And that is really a very good initiative of empowering women. But at the same time, we need to remember the men and also the boys. Because now we are in one nation, in one home, and one family. And there's no way we can just say that one gender is marginalized and the other is okay. Education should be the key to gender equality. Nothing more than that. When we empower our children with education, of course, then they are empowered. They are equal. So we don't need to say that we need to educate the girl and leave the boy out there,
but
because that is what is happening.
Diritu, do you think it's been deliberate that girls are given undue advantage now over boys in schools, for example?
Of course, today we need to put these two children together. We don't need to pick one and sideline the other, because we have really empowered the girl, which is good. But at the same time, we have forgotten the boy, and that is why you see that we are really fighting a losing battle, empowering the girl alone, and at the end of the day, they end up getting married, and maybe the boy has maybe indulged in drug abuse and all that, so they cannot make a family. So let us put these children together, and let us empower them equally. That is the only way forward. If we don't do that, then we are really fighting a losing battle.
All right, just one more question before we engage the rest of the panel. You've been fighting for recognition of your group, Maendeleo ya Wanaume.
Yeah, of course, yes. Of course, yes.
And do you think that's part of the marginalization of the boy?
Yes, of course, because we don't have organizations which fight for the rights of the boys and even men. In fact, that is marginalization. And I'm here to stand and say that I'm marginalized because the government does not listen to men. The government does not listen to boys.
The government is run by men.
Of course, we have men who have the notion
the president,
that,
the deputy
that
president,
the other men are okay. Because two men are comfortable, they think that the other men are okay. We have several boys. We have a lot of boys who are even not attending school. Right. Like, for example, according to this research that we did, it shows clearly that we have so many boys who have not even attended or joined a primary school, whereas we have more girls in those areas.
All right, okay, and we'll come back to that in a moment. Boniface, would you like to respond?
I think, let's say this, men are empowered. I wouldn't talk about that I'm not empowered. We need to commend the affirmative action. And I think girls need to be empowered more, because it's women who die giving birth, it's women who are raped, it's women who are marginalized, it's women who are discriminated every single day. So I don't think the boy child is losing because of the men. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think the boy child is losing because of many factors. Number one, you have absent fathers. We have men who are working very odd hours. By the time you get home, you can't talk to your son. There's a lot of single women, men not taking the responsibility. If you look at the street kids, there are many of them in the streets because some man somewhere left the mother or wasn't responsible enough. I grew up with a single mother, and I was never taught to be a man. That's why I went for man enough classes. I didn't know what to do. And when I reached the age of 14, I got circumcised. I became a man, so to speak, in my community. Well, that meant my mother could not beat me, could not touch me, could not tell me what to do. And it becomes a struggle that at the age of 14, you lose the boy child, there's no strong man in the house, or there's no uncle telling you what to do. And the other thing I believe that can be blamed a lot is that we have no social spaces anymore. When I was growing up, we could actually go to the social hall and play something, could play soccer. We are bringing up kids in this city where there's nothing to do apart from watching TV. And when they build, there's no social amenities. So at the end of the day, there are many factors apart from, this is the first time I can see it's not even the government. It's us to blame.
Well, that's a first. It's a good thing we had you on the show today to have something like that. Ngunjiri, what are your thoughts? And you come from Nyeri, and you can see some of the statistics according to the study that was done by Maendeleo ya Wanaume. Alcohol is a big problem in Nyeri.
Alcohol is a big problem in Nyeri. And actually, the whole idea of the boy child has become synonymous with Nyeri. There've been a lot of caricatures, a lot of real things happening, a few real things happening that get expanded to look like the rest of the country. But then one of the things I'd like to comment, and I'd like to pick up from something that Njoka said. First and foremost, I don't think empowering girls takes away from empowering boys. I think it's mangoes and oranges. I mean, they're not anywhere near...
Equal and similar?
They're, yes, equal and similar. And I say this because girls do actually need a lot of affirmative action. As a country, we are a very patriarchal society. So there's going to be need to keep empowering the girl and pushing the girl up. The problem we're having with boys actually has nothing to do with affirmative action. The problem we're having with boys has a lot to do with lack of leadership, lack of role modeling, lack of people to look up to. We as a society, we've gotten into a situation where a lot of the men we look up to as a society are not the kind of men you want your son to turn out to be like. The people we are celebrating, whether it's in music, the celebrities we have, whether it's in politics, whether it's in
well, the same could
society.
be said of women, Ngunjiri, though.
Yeah, but you see, the lady celebrities, I'm talking about, forget about the celebrity arena. I'm talking about the men we celebrate in society.
Okay.
It's very different from the women we celebrate. The women we celebrate are Kina Wangari Maathai. People who you actually want your daughters to grow up like. But we have very few men who we celebrate who you want your son to grow up like. And that's a primary problem in the whole idea. So our problem with the boy child is not a lack of affirmative action. Our problem with the boy child is that he has no idea what he's supposed to be like when he grows up.
All right, there's an interesting phrase that comes to mind, but I won't talk about it right now. Let's get on with the discussion. Pastor S, you've gone beyond identifying the problem and starting to do something about it. So tell us how we got here to this point that made your program necessary, or made you sit up and take notice and say, I need to do something about this. How did we get to this point? Men are the majority. Well, it's now 50-50, or women are slightly more than men, but men have had all the advantages. So how did we get to this point where men are not men enough?
Well, I think we assumed because the men were in charge, they were taking care of the boys. Because really the way we build the man is through the boy. The boy is a building block of masculinity. And what we did, even though it was a patriarchal society, and it's been, I think the men never did a good job in connecting with the boys and beginning to build them up. I think with the boys that we get to talk to, a lot of them don't have a relationship with their father. Almost everyone here would say we had a relationship with our mother, but not our father, most of us. I grew up without a father as well. And because of that, I really didn't have a role model. I didn't have a connection with a man who could talk to me. It's only a high school teacher who really one day sat down with me and began to have a conversation with me about masculinity. I think when we look at the ills of a boy child right now, whether it's crime, whether it's alcoholism, what we are talking about, whatever it is, a lot of it is for lack of role modeling. So what we began to do after doing all the researches and beginning to realize that lack of fathers and lack of role models is a big thing, we said, how can we get together and begin to provide men like him, who was done man enough, to go to the schools and begin to hang out with the boys. They say between 0 and 6, the main player in the life of a child is a mother, for obvious reasons. Right. But between 6 and 14 is a father. If a father is not there, or someone like a father, because in traditional society, even if you didn't have a father, there was an uncle next door. There was another man that you could connect with. Society has changed. If you don't have a father, you're not likely to connect with any man around because of the way we live anymore. So for Boys to Men program, what we do, in fact, yesterday we were launching at Alliance High School. And we had all of these boys who, many of them said they don't have a relationship with their father. And the Form 2s are saying we want to have a place where we can get three things. I see three things as a need of men today. Number one, a vision of masculinity. What does it mean to be a man? What are my roles in this modern society? How do I play out in a way that I'm honorable in the society? But number two, how do I find a safe place that can talk about my issues? We have issues as well. We were taught big boys don't cry, so we suck it up. We never talk about it. But every man and every boy needs a safe place to be able to talk about issues. That's what mentoring is about, the Boys to Men program. We sit around, boys sit around mature men and get to open up and talk about the challenges that they are facing. And lastly, we get to talk about what's your mission in life. Every man and every boy wants to feel like they're contributing to something bigger than them. For God and country, that was the cry, the rallying cry of men for many days, for many centuries, decades. We're saying for God and country, something bigger than ourselves. Men could go to war to fight for their country, like we have KDF in Somalia right now. So men need to be shown something bigger than life and pursuit of money that they can live for. So I think what we are trying to do is to get as many teenage boys around the country. So we want in the next 5 years to get 1 million teenagers mentored, sat down with by older men or successful men and taken through those three needs: definition of manhood, safe place to share their issues, and then to understand the bigger role that they play in society.
All right. Nderetu, many take issue with the manner in which you raise the issues, and it always seems like with your organization it's us versus them, the men versus the women. I'll give you an example. You wrote to CS Interior Olelenku and said you were petitioning against women recruitment in the police service. Correct me if I'm wrong, this is what you said: women never serve in volatile areas, they don't go on night patrols or engage criminals in deadly shootouts. You even gave the example of that. And look at how everybody has just turned to look at you when I said that.
That is very true. We have never seen women even die in Kapendo, in all these areas.
That's not true.
So that's
women have died in the line of duty.
And that is why even we wrote a letter to the Interior Minister trying to caution him that we need, first of all, to replace the men who have died out there, because that is why even the insecurity that is going on
already always
is deteriorating. It is really deteriorating because we lack men in the force.
No. So you think it's because we lack? Okay, all right. Here's another one. No, here's
something else about insecurity. Is that when you talk about terrorism, talk about robbery, talk about any crime, men are in the forefront. All my friends here have talked about boys have failed, men have failed. And that is why we are saying that the government needs to come up with policies, needs to come up with a structural way of empowering the boys and even men. And that is why we say there need to be an affirmative action.
All right, allow me to challenge you.
These men,
allow me to challenge you, Nderetu.
That is all what my friends have said.
What people talk about when it comes to maendeleo ya wanaume is, yes, you're raising issues, and yes, we take cognizant of the results of your study here today, but it seems like you've been in perennial mode of raising the issues. You had a sex boycott last year, November 11th, during the International Men's Freedom Day. You quit the Presbyterian Church when they refused to baptize your son as Jesus Njoka. You even offered rapper Jay-Z support when there was that altercation with his sister-in-law in the States. You demanded demolition of the Naked Boy statue. And then, of course, we all remember the incident with Bishop Margaret Wanjiru, but many say you're not going beyond raising the issues and complaining about it, and hypothetically partnering with Pastor S and saying, there's a problem, we are providing the solution, which is what women organizations do. You know, they talk about FGM, they bring in women, they rescue girls from alley marriages. Many people fault you for not doing anything about it and basically complaining.
In fact,
is that true?
We have done a lot. My friend Pastor has come after after Maendeleo Wanaume organization. We are the pioneers of fighting for men and fighting for the rights of boys.
Can I say this?
Okay.
He does not fight for me. He does not fight for me. He doesn't fight for me.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I may not be fighting for you, but we have a lot of men there who cannot be able to speak for themselves. And that is why I am there. And that is why that is why we started this organization.
I
because
feel like
the government is also mum on issues that affect men. No. Not issues that affect Boniface, but issues that affect men. And many men are suffering silently out there.
Listen, Njoka, we live in a country that is run by men. Men make the most decisions, and men are overly represented. So I think, number one, you lack respect for women. That's what I think.
Or that's not true. That's your assumption.
Maybe some woman had you somewhere.
No. That's your assumption. I don't have one wife. I have several wives.
Kenya Air
Force, I love women.
Kenya Air Force has a female pilot.
When women love me.
We have special...
I have no problem with women.
Oh, sorry. So you, because of your respect for women, you have many wives, and that means you respect women.
And they love me too.
And they love you as well.
Maybe I don't think that is.
Well, I would imagine they love you. They're your wives.
That's not Joka. Joka is a person who respects women. Joka is a person.
But you fight against women.
He's a reader. He's a reader.
You can actually push for men issues without fighting women.
Just the other day, we presented a petition to Parliament, trying to tell Parliament that women need also to be. We need also to have women in Parliament. We need to have more women in Parliament. We have that petition, and that is why we are doing away with the county women rep.
Okay.
And instead replacing them with other
men and women who have been. Let's talk about that for a minute. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the 1/3 gender rule? Yeah? What are your thoughts on the 1/3 gender rule? How do you think that can be solved?
Of course, you see, what is happening is that so many women are being appointed. They are being nominated, which is very wrong. We end up nominating women who are friends to the people who maybe are nominating them. And that is why we are doing away with nominations. We want women to be elected by the by the voters. We don't want.
All right. So what would be your formula? Because I think right now with that debate, that's where we're stuck at.
Our formula is very clear, and we have given it to the reader of Parliament. To the reader of Parliament, it's clear that we are going to have some constituencies which are going to be set aside for women. Women are going to vie alone. They're going to.
That's discrimination right there.
That sounds like you're marginalizing them and saying women be in your counties and your constituencies.
We want women to participate and to be also to serve the people.
All right.
Give an example.
You know, sorry to say this, with all due respect, Terito, I think your idea is good, but I think your application or implementation of that idea is actually making the problem bigger rather than smaller. And I didn't want this to be about fighting Maendeleo and personally, I don't think you represent the idea of what I think we should be dealing with as the problem that the boy child has. We are not supposed to be fighting women. We are not supposed to be trying to take away from what women have gotten. We are supposed to be expanding the space so that a lot of us, so that we have, you see, you seem like you're looking at what the women have got and you want to take a bit of it.
No,
let me finish.
I'm no problem with women.
Let me finish. What I think we should be doing as society, and if we're going to help the boy child, and this was actually the traditional role of the boy child, you're supposed to be expanding the space for both yourself and the women, not taking away from what they have actually gotten, which is unfortunately, whether it is the right perception or it is wrong, is a perception that Maendeleo and Aume seems to have. In the public, it looks like what you're trying to do is crow back what the women have gained and give it to the men. No, it is wrong.
All right. Okay.
Maybe to add, Gujiri, I think we actually need to partner together because the boyhood crisis and the men's crisis is not just for the men. I mean, there are many women out there who want to get married and they're not getting the right kind of a guy. I have a daughter. I am concerned about who is going to be marrying her. We need to pull together instead of fighting against each other. We need to pull together and say, how do women help in making sure that our boys become the men that need to be in a few years? We need the women involved, we need the men involved, all of us to realize, just like we pull together to help the girl child, we need to pull together as well to help the boy child. And it's not one versus the other. It's all of us pulling together for a better community.
Okay,
I think that's how I see it.
Derito, let me ask you this, because you represent men, or you claim to do that, but even in the feedback that we're getting on social media, and from the gentlemen here today, many seem to agree that yes, there's a problem with the boy child, that more needs to be done, so that, you know, we have, I don't want to use the word 50-50, but we have an equal footing for both boys and girls. But yet several people take issue with how you're doing this, and men specifically. How do you account for the fact that, and we've had you on the show several times, but you don't seem to gain support from the men that you claim to represent? Why do you think that is?
That's not true. One, we have a lot of support from county governments, because already the government has come in to partner with us, and we are doing a lot.
In what way?
We are doing a lot.
Yeah.
We are doing a lot in Mombasa. We are doing a lot in Samburu. We are doing a lot in Nyeri.
Could you be more specific, Derito?
Yeah, of course. Because what we're doing is that we are raising issues and addressing them and even giving solutions. Partnering with the government and also going to the core problems. You know, addressing the core problems and also saving the boys who are out there, who are even not going to school. That is one thing. We have done a lot we have sensitized a lot on circumcision, on one knife and one knife, because what is happening is that out there, circumcision, boys are being circumcised with one knife, which is really infectious, HIV and also STDs.
Right.
We have done a lot with county governments, and few people out there may think that we don't have support, but we have a lot of support. Women are supporting us. We have women members in our organization who are really partnering with us, and we are doing a lot. And let me tell you, now that we are the pioneers of this campaign, that is why you see my friends here. Before, I used to do these things alone, and people were wondering, what is Joga trying to say? But today, they are comfortable talking about the boy, talking about men. Before, no one was comfortable. In fact, they need to congratulate.
Well, let me say.
Let's not misrepresent you. Pastor S, I'm sure I heard about you before I heard about that.
Well, and I've heard about...
That is relative. Whether you heard about Pastor S before him doesn't mean the Richard Njoka and Maendeleo
and without
did not
taking away
exist.
from you, Yvonne, I would say actually I personally appreciate the fact that you have done a research like this, that you're making some noise. I think what you're saying we have a problem with is just the way you come across, as if we are resuscitating gender wars. It's us versus them. We're just saying, let's have another approach where we say, all of us have a problem, let's work together. That's what we're saying.
All right. Okay, so
could I suggest something? We also are looking at the risk of spending this whole show talking about Maendeleo and Naume. And essentially what we need to be talking about is how do we actually move beyond the problem we're having.
Right, and that is where I was getting to, Pastor S. Let's talk about what parity would look like. What would some of those thresholds be in terms of saying, because it sometimes might seem like we'll be in this perennial, balancing of scales. So now we have the women, and your programs are great, man enough, boys to men. And then we'd get to a point where the boys are now, again, added advantage. Some would say the boys still have the big advantage over girls. But, what would it take so that we have an even balancing in terms of that? And I know you don't just work with boys. Your whole organization is about transforming nations, Kenya, and families. So let's talk about getting to that equilibrium, what that would look like for you.
Well, I think we shouldn't begin now to focus on the boy and then neglect the girl again. I appreciate all the effort that has gone into bringing up the girl. And even us as men, and that's why I think they are talking about us getting involved in still continuing to empower the girl child. I don't feel like the girl child and the woman has gotten to where they needed to get. We still have a lot of inequalities. Men are still earning more for similar jobs than women. We still need to work against that. But we need to come to a point where, whereas we are still empowering the girl child, we begin to focus as well on the boy, so that it's not one against the other. It's all of us are putting some effort to empower both our boys and girls at the same time.
Okay.
So we need many more programs, because right now, for every 10 programs for a girl, 1 is for a boy, and that's not fair. And we are beginning to realize as men that we have actually not played our role. I think women have been very, very proactive in saying, let's socialize our girls into womanhood. So we don't blame them, because they have done their part. But as men, we are saying, let's do likewise. Let's not quit on our boys. Let's socialize. So we need the conversation. We need the realization that the boyhood is in a lot of trouble right now, and that he needs help, and we need the policies that are going to be supportive to that helping of the boy, and all of us need to have a conversation on how to do it. I think that women need to be involved. I love a program. One of the things I do is talk to the women, especially mothers of boys, because a lot of them are saying, how do I bring out the best of masculinity in my son? And as we have this conversation, we are realizing that they play a very important role for the sake of the society in building the boy as well. As fathers, we need to realize we play a very important role in bringing up our daughters. I think he has several daughters, and he needs to play his part. So I think it's all of us pulling together for the boy and for the girl at the same time.
And we'll come to you in a moment. And Nderitu, what would parity look like for you? What would you like to see? At what point will you be happy and you'll say, okay, some of these inequalities that we've seen on both sides? And even while you answer that, the men here have talked about you know, lack of role models for men. Yet, I mean, even with the advantages that men have had, I mean, men are fairly successful. Why is it difficult for boys to find role models in society?
One, we cannot rule out that men and boys are comfortable in this 21st century. There is a crisis. And if we're going to have a peaceful nation, or peaceful families, we must first of all go back to the boys. Because they are the boys in an African setup. It's the boys who start families. Because they are the boys who go and maybe look for a wife. And let us go back to the root problems. The root cause of the problems that we have, I think they start from the boys. So we need to go back there. If we lack role models, I think pastor is doing a lot. The churches must also, come in, and also the readers. You know, they must come in and also, I mean, help the men there to be good role models. We also need, as readers, even the readers, political readers, they need also to also understand that they are readers of men and women. Not think that they are readers of women only. You know, to just support the women and girls. They need to know that we are also there waiting for them to serve us.
Fair point.
And that is why I, as the chair of Mind Leon Women, we came up with a day, an international day, which is now coming the next month. International Boy Child Day. We launched it last year. And today we are going to be marking it in Kisumu. Not today, rather. This 11th of June, we are going to be marking it in Kisumu. We are going to be addressing the issues of boys leaving school and joining fishing, because we have over 5,000 boys in the
lakeside region.
Of Victoria. And the government is not doing anything.
Interesting points that you raise, and you know, some of those statistics are showing on our Super Wall tonight, and you can just take a look at some of those from the findings there. And you know, what is not in doubt is that you know, men need to do something, and some of the measures that Pastor S is talking about. But let's talk about mentoring and leadership even as we close. And I'll start with you, Ngunjiri. Are men doing enough? You know, I've made it, I'm successful, and you know, let's not look at success in terms of money, but I'm doing something great with my life. Are men leaning in and pulling out the other boys and saying, hey, look, come here, let me do something, because you see that with women all the time. Women who are successful, the first thing you do is you go back to your village, your primary school, and you say, look, I want to help mentor you, whatever that is. Do you think men are doing enough of that?
No, men are not doing enough of that. Part of it is just how men are made.
Yeah.
Men are very closed in. It's especially as you define what is called success, you tend to get a lot more closed in the more successful supposedly you become. So one of the things that, in fact, one of the things we're doing in Nyeri, myself and some friends of mine, is talking to all the schools. Every school, whether it's a primary school or a high school, has people, men and women, who've actually succeeded, and trying to get them to go back and do something in school. Trying to pick up, especially the boy schools. Because if we had, for example, with the schools I went through, I take a boy in primary school and I take a boy in high school, and I start mentoring him, even if it's just email. Just talking to him, he gets somebody he can sound off ideas. That's one of the things we're trying to do. And the thing that actually the main challenge to solving the boy-child crisis is with the men. The boy is the father of the man, but the man is the father of the boy as well. So what tends to happen, it's a circle. So the people who are men, I am fortunate enough to have had a grandfather who I really looked up to.
Right.
And my dad also, who actually I'm learning a lot from, even at this point in time. I'm a firstborn in a family that has 4 boys and a girl. So we have a boy thing going on, and even for those of us who don't have sons, we try and be role models for the young boys within the family.
Right.
And this is what we're trying to hope is going to be expanded within the outer society. As you go, I keep trying to tell all my men friends, there's some boy somewhere who looks up at you and says, when I grow up, I want to be like him.
Right.
And that's a very heavy responsibility.
Doing something about it.
And culturally, also, there's also the issue of context, Yvonne.
Yes.
We, at different times, bring up boys to do different things. And sometimes when we talk about the boy child, we talk about him from a single story narrative. We're thinking about a boy doing a particular thing. Girls have been empowered to think
they can do anything.
Yes.
They can do it all.
And that's a part of the conversation that we need to have with our boys, is the fact that you could actually do absolutely anything.
Okay.
You just need to open up your mind. And that's what I hope myself, friends like the ones we have over here, are going to keep doing that. If each of us can mentor one boy,
your job is done. Boniface, as you wind up, talk about how a program like that changes you, and just what needs to be the conversation we have around gender in the country.
I'm actually upset by that joke that I can't even think. But I think the key conversations about are men doing enough. Because I think as men, we have failed a lot in many areas. We go home late, we don't check our kids' homework, which I'm actually guilty of.
I hope you're going to do that tonight.
I did that before I came.
Good. Well,
we never spend enough time with our families. Ideal Fridays, instead of going home to our wives, we go and park outside the bar and start drinking. Ideal weekend with the kids, go to a place where there's a bar and a gazebo, so the kids are on the bouncing castle and we're drinking.
That is so typical, yes.
Yeah, so happens. As men, we don't know how to become men. As in, the other thing I think as a young father with 3 kids who has tried everything is that there are no social spaces for our kids. I'll go to Huru Park, City Park, then go to another, whatever park there is, and it's done. So there's another place to go. So what do? I sit at home, I read a book, they watch TV. So we have left our bringing to the TV or to the mother. And I think we need to reclaim back that role. The other thing is, as a man, there's so much responsibility. As a man, there's so many things on your shoulder. You expect to provide most of the time.
Right.
You're supposed to be stable emotionally. So you find that you hurt inside and you can't talk about it. And one of the things that I loved about Roman enough, you're able to open up and talk about having those cave moments where you go sit in your cave, even if it's the toilet, and sit down and cry, and then come out and say, I'm still a man. But what if I was told by my mother it's fine to cry?
Right.
And that's what I'm telling you. I have 2 sons. I tell them it's fine, you can cry. And I think that women still suffer a lot than men. Women are still discriminated, and women need more equality.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Pastor S, let's have your final comments. How many, boys and men have been through your program, and what's your hope for this in the next 5 or 10 years in terms of transforming how men think of themselves, how they define their role in society?
Actually, I'm very hopeful because when you see men willing, like himself, to come for a program for 10 weeks, then there's hope. I think we're beginning to realize we need to fix us for our sake and for the sake of the women. Right now, 5,000 men have gone through Man Enough and
5,000 men?
5,000 men and counting.
Okay.
And it's gone now beyond Kenya to the East African region.
Right.
And as I said, is one of them. We have had more than 5,000 boys. In fact, Father's Day, 21st of June, the day before 20th, we're having a march in town for the boy child. And we are launching during that time. We hope to have 5,000, 10,000 men, and you're invited together with Maendeleo and Naume, to launch a program for the next 5 years to see 1 million teenagers mentored in schools.
Okay.
We now have many schools waiting. We have done 5,000. We want to see in the next 5 years 1 million of them mentored.
Right.
And of course, the other programs with the women, the Nurturing Sons. So I think there's hope. When you see people beginning to realize we need to gather together and talk about this problem and do something about it, to me there is hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Deritu, let's wind up with you, and we're running out of time. I don't mean to cut you off very quickly. What next for you? You've done this study. This was done in the first quarter of this year. What next with this information that you have presented to the nation today?
Okay, we have done a lot of research, and we do present them to relevant ministries, and we partner with them and do what we can. But I must go back to my first point. I remember saying that education is the only key to gender equality. If we are going to educate the boy and the girl equally, not just pick the girl and leave the boy, then we are fighting a losing battle. Let us educate these two people as children, because the boy is not a grown-up. He is still a kid. He's still a child.
Still needs
he
education.
needs to be taken care of.
All right.
Let us support them as children. And when they grow up, we are not going to continue with affirmative action.
Okay.
We will have addressed all the problems at the education level.
All right, and I think that's a good place to leave it. But thank you so much for coming. Thank you for sharing your research with us today that formed the basis of our discussion. Deritu Njoka, Pastor Mbevi, Boniface Mwangi, Ngunjiri Wambugu, having all men on my panel tonight. That happens quite a bit, but this time men talking about men. So are you man enough is the question we're asking you tonight. And what are your thoughts on this issue? John Alanamu, who happens to be a man, has been following this discussion and gives us the point tonight. John?
At certain points, Yvonne, I wanted to jump into that discussion myself and give my 2 cents. But anyhow, we are impartial, so I'll leave my points to discuss outside of this bulletin. Anyhow, there are some key questions that I'd like to ask coming out of that conversation. And the first one is, what does gender equality look like? And a follow-up to that is gender equality similarity between the sexes, male and female, having the same things? In some ways it is, but in other ways it isn't. Because men and women are created differently, they will have different needs. Gender equality thus implies that both genders are given the same opportunities for each member, or for members of each sex, to do what they can do or what they want to do and be all they can be. That is the definition of gender equality, the way I see it. Now, the second question is, what has actually been done to help the boy? And here's where, as men, we need to think about what women do to be able to help one another. Women talk a lot to one another. They understand each other's problems. They mentor each other in different ways, both culturally and professionally. Are men doing that? What are the measurable activities that men can stand up and say, we have done A, B, C, and D to be able to resolve the problems of not just the boy child, but men in society? Because many of the men in Kenyan society are leaders. Many of them lead homes. Many of them lead institutions. What are those measurable things that can be done and can be seen to have been done to help men get out of the situation that they are? Finally, what do Kenyan role models look like? Everywhere in the world, you have a specific typeface of what a role model is. In America, it's a person who has made a lot of money and given it away in being philanthropic. In other parts of the world, there are other typefaces that set the standard for what role modeling is. And of course, it doesn't have to be about a specific profession or anything, but there are specific characteristics. that correspond to what being a role model is in this country. What do Kenyan role models look like? Are our leaders role models? Are the people who stand up in front of TV role models? Are the people at home, our husbands, role models? If we are able to understand and clearly define what role models are for men, then we'll be one step ahead in getting the boy child where he needs to be. And that is a point this evening. KTN Weekend Prime rolls on. Just ahead, we've got more news for you from across the country. Stay with us.